We are almost 2 weeks after PRB02 release, so it's a perfect time for a tier list. It's a short meta just before OP13 release in November. A lot of decks are playable, but let's focus on the ones that will give us an edge in competitive environments like regionals or treasure cups. Starting with S tier. I place here the leaders that I think will win the most events. They are consistent decks with high power level. If you go into a tournament, you either pick them or need to have a strategy to beat them. I think only 2 leaders deserve to be here. First is Blue Purple Luffy. This deck is a menace. It reminds me of Whitebeard back in the day that survived multiple ban lists by simply adjusting the deck list a bit. And the same happens now with Blue Purple Luffy. Despite per ban of 8 cost Katakuri and 9 cost Big Mom, he still remains on top. Unfair leaders effect and shift towards more defensive events, supported by 5 cost Rosinante, helped to create unbreakable defense. Inclusion of 9 cost Mihawk helped to give great target for 9 cost Sanji and fight back opponent's board. Once this deck reaches late game, there is very little you can do, so if you don't pick it for your next regionals, make sure you have enough practice against it. Second deck in the S tier is Green Purple Luffy. The only downside until now for this deck was consistency. However, with release of PRB02, we received another great purple searcher that can jump from trigger. In effect, we can play up to 16 searchers in a deck that resolves around finding multiple copies of Sanji and Pudding. On top of that, deck is able to tailor the list and shut down strategies of almost any deck in the meta. Opponent is floating Dawn or play blockers? DMG. Need to survive all-in or filter your hand? Gum Gum Giant. Opponent plays cost-based removal? Stage. Opponent can remove only 1 threat per turn? Luffy Taro. Aggro deck taps out? Luna. Having access to both green and purple cards allows you to beat any deck in the game. I think only these 2 decks deserve S tier in the meta. We already saw Blue Purple Luffy winning offline in EU and online in NA, and GP Luffy winning Lion Regional. So if you want to have the best shot in current meta, just trust in your captain. Moving on to A tier. Despite Luffy dominance, I would not be surprised if any of the decks from this tier would win regional. Starting with one of my favorite decks, Red Riley. Deck is still amazing and is capable of winning regional level events. However, with release of PRB02 decks that were almost auto-win, became stronger. Beating GP Luffy or Red Green Smoker might be not so easy anymore. Blue Purple Luffy matchup I think is close to 50-50. I'm also not a fan of Riley in so-called jungle meta, where players are bringing many different decks and we can randomly lose to some yellow decks. Nonetheless, deck is one of the highest power level in the game if piloted optimally. So if you already put time and effort into it, I can see you winning your next regional with Dark King. Second deck is well known since release of OP12, Green Zoro. This leader received a lot of hate, main reason being how easy to build and pilot. But competitive One Piece is all about winning, and therefore Zoro is a safe pick for tier A. I would even put it in S considering how open meta is, but most of the players already understand how to pilot or build decks expecting to play against Zoro. Nonetheless, Zoro thrives in format where you can play into anything. Cookie cutter, powerful strategy. If you don't have much time for tournament preparation, this is a pick for you. Tashigi on 5, swing and go next. Last deck I will not be surprised to win the regional level event is Bonnie. Green decks are eating very well this expansion. However, I don't put Bonnie in S tier due to one simple reason: consistency. As already mentioned, Green received a lot of great tools recently, and Bonnie is the master of good generic green cards. We even got dedicated 3-cost blocker that restands a Dawn in PRB02. Deck is not easy to pilot and requires high matchup knowledge. Despite this, you are still vulnerable to breaking your hand and just losing. With all due respect to Bonnie players, I think the only player capable of winning with her in the West is Arman. But let's wait and see, maybe you will prove me wrong. Like I said, any of these 3 leaders is good pick into regionals field. I won't be surprised if we see one of them taking the whole tournament down. Lastly, I prepared B tier. If you watch channel for a bit, I always like to focus on most relevant information, therefore I'm not a fan of high amount of tiers or leaders in the tier list. Like I already mentioned, meta is quite open and you can surprise opponents with many different picks that receive support in PRB02. You can see more information about them in my other video. Best example is Milan Regional Top Cut with 15 unique leaders. Let's name a few that I think have high chances to at least reach Top Cut in the upcoming tournaments. First one is one of the biggest winners of PRB02, Red Green Smoker. With the amount of support this leader received in this set, he should be easily in S tier, right? Unfortunately, it's not the case. It seems that being 4-life leader and lacking a bit of consistency is enough reasons to have not so easy matchups in current metagame. However, power level is still very high, especially if you see all your pieces on curve, so it's expected to see this deck in Top Cut. But Smoker is not the only leader that received buffs from Kobe and low printing. Next is the underdog, PRB01 Sanji. We already saw 2 in Milan Top Cut. I still think Riley is the aggro deck of the set, but Sanji is nice alternative for red deck lovers. We can catch our opponents off guard by giving rush to characters like Kobe or Low to use their when attacking effects. Games can get very nasty if your opponent is not prepared. For now, I think it's more of a surprise factor than high power level of the deck. Like any red deck, we are weak to removal, and if we don't finish games against leaders like Blue, Purple, Luffy quick, we are cooked. Nonetheless, deck is worth trying if you count on surprising your opponents. Next, I have staple gatekeeper of any format, and I'm not talking about NL, which should be in his own category called Noob Trap. Third deck in B tier is Blackbeard. I think deck received a solid upgrade in form of Shiryu. However, as always, Blackbeard is very polarizing leader, which is safer pick in already established meta. Nonetheless, if bracket luck is on your side, you can very easily go into Top Cut. Otherwise, X3 drop. Next, I have some potential underdogs. Blue Yellow Nami, another surprise factor in my opinion. Printing of PRB Marco gave new life to any leader with access to blue. Nami is also great into any aggro strategies due to access to yellow cards. Only weakness is that once players learn how to play and swing into Nami, there is not much more we can do. Second underdog is straight counter pick to Blue Purple Luffy. Green Yellow Low. I think it's a great pick if you target specific deck in a meta. I'm not sure if it's worth to go through mental gymnastic through 10 rounds, but I can see this deck achieving Top Cut on a good Swiss bracket. But I can say similar things about many more decks. Instead of that, let me tell you this. If you have a deck that can answer all S and A tier leaders, just bring it to the upcoming regionals and leave a comment below with your result. In conclusion, if you are aiming to win, I would pick one of the Luffy leaders. If you already have practice with Rayleigh, Zoro or Bonnie, it's totally fine to bring them into the field. Lastly, if you did some great discovery with cards from PRB02, like for example Red Sanji leader, and feel confident into the S and A tier decks, go ahead and take that regional win. Thank you for watching, see you in the next video, bye bye.